May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each heart be holy and acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. I'm going to ask y'all to do something. I'm going to ask y'all to keep the gospel reading close by. Go ahead and keep it opened right to that page. We're going to look at something in that reading in just a moment. Last weekend, I wasn't here with y'all. I was officiating a wedding down in the hill country. Eric and I and Jude got to go down there. Some of you may know Peyton and Elena Francis. They're new members here. They were confirmed in May, and they just got married last weekend. Beautiful time, beautiful wedding. I like doing weddings, all kinds of weddings. I've had the opportunity to do many of them through the years, as you can imagine. I enjoy the whole process. I enjoy the premarital counseling. I enjoy the ceremony. I enjoy the reception, sort of. Well, I should say I enjoy the reception if Erica gets to go with me. If my wife isn't with me, I tend to not go to those receptions. I've spent too many times at a reception as a priest by myself where inevitably a groomsman corners me and opens up about his relationship woes or tells me all the reasons he doesn't agree with organized religion. Or a bridesmaid, after like her fourth tequila shot, comes up to me and says something along the lines of, "I am just such a huge fan of God." God is so appreciative of your support. But if Erica's there, it's like a date, right? We get a free meal 9 times out of 10. They seat us at the table with the grandparents, which those are the folks I'd rather be hanging out with anyway. So it's fun. I've noticed something, though, about myself as far as the ceremony is concerned. For a long time, I always paid a lot of attention to that moment when the groom first lays eyes on the bride, you know, the music cues, the doors swing wide open, and she starts walking down the aisle. And I always just loved watching the groom's face and the groom's response to that moment. Not anymore, though. Now, I find myself paying closer attention to someone else, the father of the bride, because I have a daughter. And though she is only in middle school, we all know how time flies, right? You see, the groom's face is filled with this anticipatory delight, overwhelmed by beauty, the face really of a life just beginning. The father's, it's the face of a man who can't make life slow down. In his eyes, I catch a glimpse of the transience of all things. This inescapable quality of existence that shows us the only way to get through this dear life is to learn to let go of all the things we've held on to for dear life. And although that can be a source of deep pain, it is also a source of our deepest pleasures. From the same well, we get to draw laughter and tears, joy and sorrow, courage and fear, light and darkness. So these days, I watch the fathers' faces as they walk their daughters down the aisle. This morning, our gospel reading has fathers and daughters all through it. Some we see and hear from, and others we don't see or hear from, but they are there. Jairus was a father. He was also an important member of this Jewish community's ruling class. He was a prominent member of the synagogue. To achieve that kind of prominence in that day and age, you had to display certain things, like a certain level of personal piety. You had to manage your home effectively, and you had to possess a certain amount of wealth. And it is this man of piety, this man of position, of privilege, we could even say, this man that people looked up to for guidance, for direction, for advice, for leadership, this man is now on his knees begging Jesus to heal his daughter. Jesus, of course, agrees and begins to follow Jairus back to his home, where a big, supportive, loving family waits, a household of friends, all keeping watch over this sick little girl. But something happens along the way. She goes unnamed in this story. Unlike Jairus' daughter, she is not surrounded by a loving family. You can imagine her belonging to a family at some point. She would have had to. At some point, she was someone's daughter. Not anymore. Why? Because of what we do know about her. For the past 12 years, she has suffered from a terrible condition, a condition that excluded her from community, from worship, from her family. Because of this medical condition, her family would have shunned her, separated themselves from her. To her father, she would have been a broken dream, an embarrassment, a disappointment. Living with this affliction in that day and age would have been a sign of her uncleanness before God. And it's not like she hasn't tried. It's not like she didn't try. The story even says she sought the help of physicians. She probably went to every MD in town, and when that didn't work, she went to every quack and snake oil salesman in town, and when that didn't work, well, what do? Where do you go? Now, the gospel passage doesn't say this. It doesn't say this, but this is how I imagine the scene unfolding. I think this woman came out that day to see Jesus. Maybe see if she could even get an audience with Jesus. But then, then big, important, pious, holy, prominent Jairus comes on the scene. Now all the attention is on him. Now Jesus is on his way to Jairus' house, and she's afraid she's missed her chance. There's no way to get Jesus' attention now. Who am I compared to Jairus? He's important. People respect him. I'm just a poor, sick, amount to nothing. But maybe I could just touch his robe. Maybe I could just lay a hand on him. Maybe that would be enough. Have you ever been desperate? I mean, not just at wit's end, but at what you think is the end. Not just at the end of your rope, but there's just no more rope. Perhaps it was out of that kind of desperation the woman reaches out her hand covertly, secretly, not wanting to draw attention to herself. The untouchable woman risks it all to touch the hem of his garment, counting on staying hidden the way she always has, counting on not making a scene. I heard a saying once that dangerous diseases call for dangerous remedies. And she's about to discover the dangerous remedy in store, not just for her, but for her culture that's so fixated on who's in and who's out, a culture with all these little rules and regulation about who gets to have support, about who gets to experience community, about who gets to receive love. Now look at what Jesus does. Look at what he does. Here you have Jairus pleading on behalf of his daughter, who is surrounded by a loving family. And here's this woman who for 12 long years has lived alone, hidden, ostracized, excluded. She has no family. There is no father pleading for her. Now pick up that gospel reading. Look at it. Pick it up. What is the first word Jesus spoke to her? What does Jesus call her? What does he call her? Daughter. Daughter. I can't help but wonder, when was the last time anybody called her by that name? Now, you could read this story and focus on the curing, Jairus' daughter cured, this woman cured, but I've heard too many sermons and too many thoughtless comments tying faith to curing, and I got nothing to say on that. I don't know why some people get better and some people stay sick. I don't, and I refuse to make theological or scriptural sense of people's pain. Lord knows the church has tried, but ultimately for me, I found that the pain doesn't go away just because it's been explained. But Jesus called her daughter. And I can't get past that. Because I see and hear in that word a whole world of healing. And maybe one reason why the church for centuries has read this story is it reminds us that one of the things we are to be is a community of healing. A people who gather and witness those daughters and sons orphaned in this world by an imperfect love. We get to watch them walk down the aisle, healed and held by the one who has shown us a perfect love. The one who called her daughter. Amen.